How's it going, YouTube? One of my last videos there, the update on the CHUMP Car. I was asked to put a little more of the journey onto camera and post it, and that is my intent. But what I was having trouble with is the way my brain is functioning right now with my MS, the shit for brains as I call it, SFB. I was struggling with the software on how to edit the video, and it's software I've used for a while, and I just couldn't seem to get my act together. So I took about 4.5 hours of stuff, and it wasn't the greatest, but I managed to throw it together in a way that it was watchable to get you up to speed. We did have a setback. The CHUMP Car race is cancelled. The reason being, there's just not a good enough car count. I think we're up to maybe 11 cars, and they needed at least 20. So the Winnipeg Sports Car Club decided that they weren't in a position to be able to run it. They're trying to run races, but they also run to try and make a little bit of money to operate the club so they can keep going. And they weren't going to be, it was going to cost them money to run the CHUMP Car race. And CHUMP Car itself was debating whether they wanted to try and run it with too few cars. It'd be pretty boring to run 7 hours with 9 cars. It would be nice to have 30 or 40 cars on the track or whatever. So it's a bit disappointing, but we're going to continue with the car. Ironically, Scott is on the board of the membership board. What do they call it? Executive board for the Sports Car Club, and is in a position to make the call whether to continue on or not. So it was a tough decision he had to make, and he had to make it for the good of the club. So that being said, we're going to keep working on the car, and if we get it done early enough, we're going to see if we can run it on one of the regular race weekends. A couple of good things coming out of it. One, it got me active, because I was kind of in the dumps a little bit, depression-wise. And this has kind of helped get me going. And working on the metal patches, watching Dave do his stuff is pretty neat, because he does really nice work. And it's got my hands dirty, getting some practice doing body work again. I haven't done much for years, so I've been cutting some patches and patching holes. I have a little bit more to do in the grinding department today, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to work on grinding the patches I put in. So without just sitting here and blabbing, I'm going to show you what we've got going here. It's the section Dave was working on, and the floor was really getting bad, so he reinforced that, and he's just in the process of putting that all back together there. He's taking his time. I started doing patches on the passenger door, and this is what it looks like so far. I got to do a lot more grinding. There's a couple of holes there that I got patched, and then this patch here was fairly large and went up the corner a little bit. So I got a little more grinding to do, and on the back side underneath. If you can see that with the light, but I have some finishing to do along those patches there where they're not bent over yet. Well, I did a few more tack welds along this wheel well, and I haven't done any grinding yet, and I think I'm to the point I'm going to grind it now to see where I am at, and then I can work on finishing it. And here's where Dave's been working and making real good progress in building that up for a little more strength. Scott was sanding on the hatch. I'd mentioned in the last video I put larger pins on. The pins that were on there were quite small, so I made these out of bolts, and we using the same locking pins to hold the hatch down as we're using on the hood. The original hood pins were bolted onto one of the bolt holes here, which is where the hinge was for the hatch, and I moved it inboard a bit, and it's a bolt that I cut the head off, and it actually goes through a spacer. You can see the washers, and the nut is actually inside this old piece of roll cage tubing. That was when this was in a previous car. That's where the supports came for the back. We were gonna cap those and cut them off flush, but then we decided if I did it this way, it's actually tying the body to the cage, so it should help make the car a little more rigid. That's what the plan is there. And of course, you know that center bar was done. I got it all fitted with needed a slight curve at both ends just to get it back behind the seat a little better. And then this center section is sleeved and rosette weld, as well as the ends. These two pipes are joined in the middle. There's about a 1/4 of an inch gap in the middle, and we drilled a series of holes, and when we had it all lined up, those holes were filled. It's called rosettes. So you're welding at those spots, so it's welded solid in here, and then it's welded on the outside as well. Very, very strong way to join tubing. So even though there's welds, there's actually double the thickness of metal from here over to here. And this is also spaced in a way that when we put the shoulder harnesses on, they will sit just to the outside of this, and this will provide enough spacing for the belts to be here, because this will go up against the back of the seat when the seat's all the way back, and the shoulder belts will maintain their proper spacing. So that should work a lot better than what was in there. I went to the one of the two local body shops here and got a couple of old bumper covers. This one's off what was it here? 2003 and up Cavalier. So I could pick ones that I wanted, and the intent is to get the car a little more streamlined. So that one wasn't going to work for us, but what I did was I cut a little section off, heated it up a little bit and shaped it initially. I've got a little more shaping to do, but what we're going to do with it is the cover in the headlight buckets, because we're not running headlights, and that's just a big air dam. So it kind of shaped like the original covers were for the Zeds. And being plastic, I can mold it. I think I'll actually make some kind of a buck or a plug to help do it. And one other thing we did was, this is off a Subaru WRX that I looked at, and we're gonna have to cut it apart a little bit and glue it and weld it back together. But in order to make the car a little more aerodynamic, we were looking for a chin spoiler, because all the original sheet metal is gone from the race car. And so where do you find sheet metal cheap or free for a 78 Datsun? So I'm going to cut it narrower and bring it in. Get it up a little bit higher, and basically give it a little bit of when we narrow this center section out, we're going to run a piece of aluminum from this point here up to the bottom of the frame under the rad cradle there, just to help channel air into the rad to help the cooling. One of the things I'll have to do is cut at the side, but right now it looks like it's hanging way down because it is. But once we bring that up, we think it's going to work. If not, didn't cost us anything, because the body shop let me pick through their pile, and their only stipulation is, when I go to grab one, ask them first, because it might be one that was on the pile that they're keeping. So I brought the two home. The Cavalier one initially I thought would look good on the car in an unusual way, but Scott didn't like it. See if I can show you really quickly how I thought it would go. But initially I thought this would work on the car. Initially, that's what the front would have looked like if I'd put this on there. With the exception that this would have been laid back a little farther. So, but Scott figures it'll make the nose a little too pointy. If you look from the top, it's got a slightly different point. But then, when I was looking at it, I set it in a way, or I planned on putting it on upside down. Which, yeah, the idea was there, but except when you put it on upside down, it looks like a cow catcher. So it's being sacrificed for the plastic to make the headlight covers. Anyway, we're going to let you go. Take it easy. Have a good one, and the next time I'll be working on the door.